The Ancient Games, A Way to Honor the Gods by Stacy Hoffman. Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to be in the Olympics? Or wondered what it must feel like to compete at such a high level? How about the Ancient Games? In ancient Greece, many athletes from different polises or city-states would go and compete to honor their gods and bring victory to their polises. The first ancient games were held in 776 BC and went until 393 AD. This was a total of 1,169 years. If the modern games would go that long, they would still be held in 3066. The ancient games were a way to honor their gods. They were held in midsummer on the first full moon after the summer solstice between July 15th and August 15th. Originally, the games were held for only one day, but they were extended to 5 days. In the modern Olympics, we have an opening and closing ceremony, but in the ancient games, there were rituals done on all 5 of the days. There were different conditions that were held during the games, which hostilities among the Greek cities would have to stop. There were no weapons allowed, and any death penalties were suspended. At different locations of the Pan-Hellenic Games, different gods were honored. In the Olympic Games, in Olympia, Zeus was honored, and at the Nemean Games, he was also honored. Zeus was the god of the gods. He was the ruler of all the gods. At the Pythian Games in Delphi, Apollo was honored. Apollo was god of sun, light, music, and song. Poseidon was honored at the Isthmian Games in Corinth. Poseidon was the god of the sea and of anger. On this map of ancient Greece, this shows where the different locations of the Olympus were held, the Olympic Games were held. The cities that have stars circled are the ones where the Pan-Hellenic Games took place. In 472 BC, when the festival was lengthened from 1 day to 5 days, the Greeks added a number of events. These sporting events included boxing, discus, equestrian events, jumping, pancration, pentathlon, and running. The first day of the games consisted of just ceremonies before the statue and altar of Zeus. These ceremonies included huge feasts. In later Olympics, there were events for the boys, the heralds, and the trumpeters. On the second day, some events did take place, but many festivities were still taking place for majority of the time. And some of these festivities included feasting, parades, and singing. On the third day, there was a procession to the altar of Zeus. At the altar, there would be a hecatomb, which was a sacrifice of 100 oxen. They would kill them and burn their thighs. For the rest of the meat that they didn't burn, they would bring to have a huge feast that night. They also would have foot races on this third day. The fourth day, there were no sacrifices and there were no ceremonies. It was a day for all sporting events. On the fifth day, all the prizes were awarded. Long feasts were held for the victors and by the victors. There are still some athletes from these ancient games that are still remembered today. I will mention 3 of them. One of them was Milo of Croton. He was a wrestler, a 6-time Olympic victor, who won once in a boys' wrestling for the 60th Olympiad in 540 BCE. From 532 to 516, Milo won 5 wrestling champions from the 62nd to the 66th Olympiad. At the age of 41, the 67th Olympiad, Milo refused to retire. His challenger won against him because he avoided all of his hits and ended up wearing him out. In the picture in the upper right-hand corner, it is a depiction of his death, which is believed that he was he died by a wild beast. The story goes that he was walking through the woods one day and he wanted to test his strength by trying to uproot a tree. In doing this, he ended up falling over and tripping and being trapped by the tree. When the tree trapped him, a wild beast came and eventually ate him. The second athlete that I'm going to talk about is Theagenes of Thasos. He was a boxer, a pancratist, and a runner. Boxing in the 75th Olympiad in 480 BCE, and he won the pancration in 76 Olympiad in 476 BCE. At the 75th Olympiad, he had thought he would win both the boxing and the pancration prizes, but he was worn out by the end. Following his death, the people of Thasos memorialized Theagenes with a bronze statue. There are different pictures of him doing his different races and fighting. The third and last athlete that I'm going to talk about is Melachmus of Caria, who was a boxer. He won the 207th Olympiad in 49 AD. He had a very unique boxing style in which he only defended himself from the blows of the other boxers, and he would avoid striking the other men. He won by tiring out the other boxers, such as Milo, who I mentioned before. His training was very rigorous, which was the reason for most of his success. Melachmus exercised far more than any of the other athletes that he competed against, and he went for 2 straight days with his arms up, not once putting them down or resting. He died at a very young age, but his name still lives on for his remarkable boxing skills. In conclusion, the ancient games were originally seen as a religious festival. In 472 BC, it became a 5-day festival that split the games half competitive and half religious. Many athletes, scholars, and soldiers would compete to honor their gods and to become a hometown hero.